Picture this. You've got the messy, post-it note-filled world of design, and it's slamming headfirst into the relentless, spreadsheet-driven culture of mainstream business. What actually happens? Well, it creates a massive friction point. On one hand, you have this deep desire to create something culturally or socially transformative, but on the other, you hit with the overwhelming pressure of efficiency, scalability, and that relentless hustle culture of modern entrepreneurship. It's a clash that absolutely defines the modern creative economy.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We are going to unpack some truly groundbreaking 2025 research out of the National University of La Plata in Argentina. The researchers, Enrique D'Amico and Federico Del Giorgio Solfa, did a deep dive into how industrial designers are actually rebelling against that standard Silicon Valley-style hustle culture. They're pushing past what the study calls neoliberal logics, which is basically that toxic grow-at-all-costs startup mindset, to carve out a radically different, self-organized path. It's fascinating stuff, so let's get right into it.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, a clash of cultures. Second, the entrepreneurial triad. Third, real-world design ecosystems. Fourth, shaping discursive cultures. And finally, number 5, projectual sovereignty.
Starting with Section 1, a clash of cultures, the systemic friction.
So look at the stark contrast here. The research points out that traditional design education, rooted in what we call design culture, is naturally open-ended and exploratory. It's historically geared toward cultural or social transformation. But the second graduates enter the real world, they smash right into business culture. And business culture demands efficiency, extreme profitability, and scalable, measurable performance. The researchers make this great point. In design schools, designers are essentially designed to view the world a certain way. But the dominant narrative of modern entrepreneurship tells them the only way to actually succeed is through rapid, aggressive economic growth. And you know what? That severely limits how creative professionals can even imagine their own careers and any alternative trajectories.
Moving right along to Section 2, the entrepreneurial triad, a new analytical model. Notice these interconnected loops. They map out a holistic ecosystem instead of just a standard, rigid business model. On the left, you've got the entrepreneurial designer. The focus here is on designing the problem, figuring out exactly what is being designed and why, beautifully blending professional intent with personal values. In the middle, we have the entrepreneurship itself. That's designing the solution, which is the how, encompassing the business model and the project's viability. Finally, on the right, we have the ecosystem. This is where collective validation happens. It answers where, when, and with whom does this project interact. The really crucial takeaway here is that this isn't a linear factory line. It's a recursive system. The product is a living device that constantly learns from and feeds back into its local environment.
That brings us to Section 3, real-world design ecosystems, beyond the metropolis.
The study actually analyzed 8 real-world entrepreneurial initiatives in the Buenos Aires province. This comparison highlights 2 wildly different examples. Case 1 is Metallurgica Mangini. It's located in the small district of Tres Lomas and is deeply embedded in the local metalworking industry. Now contrast that with Case 6, Oso Studio, over in the coastal city of Mar del Plata. They focus on the design and manufacturing of ceramic products. Both are led by industrial design grads, but their expressions of entrepreneurship are entirely tied to their specific territories, the resources they have on hand, and their local material languages. Success for them isn't defined by becoming the next global tech unicorn. No way. It's about a non-extractive, localized practice that adds real value to a specific community. It just proves that design entrepreneurship is incredibly diverse and deeply situated.
All right, Section 4, shaping discursive cultures, designing oneself.
Here is the secret weapon these designers use to maintain their identity and coherence in a really tough market. It's called discursive culture. It's the intersection of 3 things: products, representing what they design; thought, which is how they think about design; and praxis, what they actually do every single day. The researchers argue that for these autonomous designer entrepreneurs, there is literally no separation between life and work. They aren't just producing objects, they're producing themselves. They are actively negotiating a space where their internal ethical values align perfectly with their daily professional practice and the physical products they put out into the world. It's this living, breathing, evolving culture of continuous self-design.
So, all of this leads to a massive light bulb moment. By establishing a strong discursive culture, these designers shift the entire central question of their careers. It's no longer just what we design, which, let's face it, is purely functional. Instead, it becomes, why do we design? Think about your own daily work for a second.
Are you just asking what you're making, or are you actually stopping to ask why? This is a major pivot toward ethical relational design. It's about conceiving objects not just as consumer goods, but as material narratives that express worldviews and deep cultural values.
Which takes us to our final stop, Section 5, Projectual Sovereignty, Reclaiming the Practice.
The researchers coined this awesome term, projectual sovereignty. They defined it as the critical capacity of designers to self-manage their creative decisions and resist those hegemonic market pressures. And they break it down into 4 distinct dimensions. Step 1 is philosophical, that shift toward ethical meaning we were just talking about. Step 2 is territorial, using local intelligence and designing for immediate communities rather than some vague, decontextualized global user. Step 3 is temporal, which means adopting alternative pacing. And Step 4 is productive, relying on small, flexible structures instead of endlessly scalable, rigid corporate models.
Let's zoom in on that third one, the temporal dimension, because it brings us to slow design. Think of it like the slow food movement, but for your creative work. In a world that constantly screams for everything to be faster and cheaper, intentionally slowing down is literally a form of active resistance. Slow design prioritizes the quality of the process, a deep closeness to users, and situated local learning. It flat out rejects market-driven acceleration to ensure that the work actually means something, both to the designer and the community.
So, practically speaking, what does this actually look like in the wild? The study identified 2 fascinating modern profiles that I just think are incredibly cool. First, we have expanded craft. These are designers who blend formal design education with traditional, localized, artisanal crafts. They're breathing completely new life into old techniques. Second, we have what they call de-influencers. These are designers who use social media, but not just to sell stuff. They act as micro-narrators of their own experience, sharing the messy, authentic, behind-the-scenes process of daily design. Both of these profiles explicitly reject that unlimited growth mandate of standard startups in favor of sustainable, highly personal, meaningful projects.
To bring this all home, design theorist Friedrich von Borries hit the nail on the head when he said, "Bad design can only be criticized with good design." The researchers use this quote to remind us of something super important. Projectual disobedience isn't just about complaining about capitalism or hustle culture. It's an act of creation. It's about taking that critical awareness and translating it into actual, physical practice. Every single choice a designer makes, what materials to use, what pace to work at, what story to tell, is a micro-act of designing an alternative, and frankly, better future.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. We've seen how designers in Argentina are carving out projectual sovereignty, resisting the pressure to simply scale up at all costs, and choosing local impact, deep meaning, and internal coherence instead. In a world that is completely obsessed with massive scale and endless efficiency, what will you choose to design? And even more importantly, why will you design it? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and keep exploring.